The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular franchises. And today we are discussing The Omen from 1976. Are you ready to get classy, John?
I'm ready to get extremely classy.
This is a classy movie for classier times. There's not a nary wishmaster in this. There's not a pumpkin head in this. This is
neither a Hatfield nor a McCoy.
Right. Yes. This is.
Although, if you think about it, God versus the devil is the ultimate Hatfield versus McCoy.
There you go. So, who are you assigning the devil and God to among Hatfield and McCoy? You don't want to wade into that. I don't. You think want me to alienate
50% of our listeners?
Right.
No way.
The McCoys, you mean? Oh,
damn.
Anyway, muskets fired. But this was the era of 70s satanic horror. Arguably, started off Rosemary's Baby in 1968. Obviously, The Exorcist was a massive hit in 1973. So we're turning the corner here in 76. I don't want to be all high and mighty and call this like a satanic trilogy or anything, but they all kind of fit together right around in that area.
I mean, there's a lot of satanic stuff that happened. You had all kinds of grindhouse movies that had that. Devil's Reign came out a year before. In England, you had Blood on Satan's Claw, which is one of, I think, the big three of their folk horror. But yeah, Satanism was big. In fact, I think Anton LaVey is in Devil's Reign.
He's in Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, he's in Rosemary's Baby?
Yeah.
I think he's in Devil's Reign as well.
Yeah, he plays Satan in Rosemary's Baby in like that dream sequence type of thing.
I'm not going to lie. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
I mean, hot take. I don't really like Rosemary's Baby that much.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. I haven't rewatched it in like 15 years because I always think to myself, I don't really like Rosemary's Baby, because you just know the whole plot the entire time. It's just like, oh, is she going to have the devil's baby? She sure does. Like that. There's no tension. It's a beautiful movie. But
yeah, I think that was part of our problem with this when I first watched it, which was many, many years ago. Is that I was expecting. I know the twist of this movie is that the baby's the devil, that little Damon's the devil. And I guess maybe I was expecting a lot more like, I'm a baby, blah, than I got. But now watching it this time, I love the way that it's not that. I love that it's very much more it's very much more mysterious and I think that's way more interesting. But
absolutely,
I think when I was younger, I just wanted a lot more baby devil action.
Yeah, exactly.
But you do when you're younger.
Of course. And that's one of the things that I loved most about this watch is just like really zeroing in on the fact that like Damien's barely in it. Well, maybe not barely in it, but like there's a large swath of the film that we're not even focused on Satan's baby right there. And I don't want to say that you kind of forget that he's in the movie, but like I remember near the end of the film after they get back from the Middle East and all that kind of stuff, I was like, oh yeah, there's Damien. Like the whole point of all this. Right.
Yeah. Damien, everything centers around Damien, but he himself is barely in it.
Right. So this is a true like origin story arc, I suppose, over the next couple of films, because obviously at least I think he's in the next one, I would think,
I think the second one is called Damien the Omen 2.
Oh,
so
there
I would
you go.
Think so.
Okay. Well, I hope he's in it then.
I hope that could be false advertising.
Right. But yeah, this was a big success. This was a major Hollywood release, even though like it's primarily like British crew, British actors, all that kind of thing. Richard Donner was not a guy yet. Like I think he had only directed one other film before this. But this announced his arrival, and he goes on to make Superman the movie after this, which is fantastic.
Yep.
Ends up making The Goonies later on. So I really love that Richard Donner, like one of America's greats, got started doing The Omen.
Yeah. I mean, he also did. I actually didn't realize or had forgotten that he did Scrooged.
Oh,
that's
right.
Richard Donner joined.
My goodness. Yeah. Like, think of the range. Like, there's not a specific quality to any of those films other than being good. It's just like like horror, fantasy, like all that kind of stuff. So
it's just looking at his list of films, as far as like being sort of I don't want to say jack of all trades, but does a bunch of varied films. Between like the hit or miss ratio between him and Ridley Scott, you got to go Donner.
Oh, right.
Because I think Ridley Scott's got a lot more misses sort of per capita.
Yeah.
But Donner's got The Toy, which is not great.
Right.
And Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson and Radio Flyer, which I'd rather not talk about.
Oh.
But I just think he's made a lot of varied but very good movies. And I think he is the driving force for why I think this movie is so good compared to what the initial script was.
Right. And
also just the finished product and the choices you make as a director and all that.
Right. Of course. I mean, and I think what you're referring to is there was originally a lot more supernatural qualities in the script, correct?
Yeah. I started reading the book, which like David Seltzer, which actually like came out around the time of the movie.
Yeah.
Like almost like a novelization, but it was based more on the first version of a script. Right out of the gate, all the stars are aligning for Satan to be born. The child death happens. Like it mentions the child death happening.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so it's just like sets out to go like, this baby's the devil.
Right.
Richard Donner was like, why don't we background that? And why don't we make that about like everything, more mysterious? And I think that makes for so much more of an interesting movie.
Is it just a coincidence that all these terrible deaths are happening around you? Almost a Final Destination style, except for the first one.
Yeah, and there's definitely some Final Destinations.
But and that is fascinating to me especially because Damien's barely responsible for any of them, except for arguably like Trike and his mom at one point. But other than that, like he's just kind of like running around.
Well, but then again, is Trike and his mom, is that a purposeful triking?
Right.
Or is that just, I'm a baby, I'm riding a trike. What do you want from me?
I came up to say hi to you. It's not my fault that you were on a stepladder overlooking a banister.
Yeah. I just wanted to say hi to mommy.
Yeah.
And I'm the bad guy.
Yeah, right. Let's not forget Jerry Goldsmith as well.
Yes.
The soundtrack to this movie is fantastic. Won an Oscar. Only horror soundtrack to ever win an Oscar. And then he goes on and makes the theme to Superman a couple of years later, which is absolutely an iconic theme.
Yeah.
So batting 1,000, this guy. Well, at that point in his career anyway. But yeah.
If you look at those two movies.
Exactly. But yeah, like the music in this movie is so gigantic and gothic.
Yes.
And like there is no subtlety to it at all. And I love that. Like if the rest of the film is a little subtle at times, like the soundtrack is just like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make a song called Hail Satan, basically. Ave Satina or something like that.
Praising Satan in the lyrics.
Right.
With, in Latin.
Right. So it's great. Go listen to that soundtrack while you're casually listening to us. Put that on in the background and
you'll make this podcast way more interesting.
All of our points will be very, very dramatic. Just out the gate, this is where I just say, like, I am a total sucker for religious horror type of movies. I always like a good Catholic church, satanic horror type of thing, especially when you get into like archaeological digs with quote unquote real artifacts and things like that. I dig that, almost Indiana Jones quality.
Sure. And I think, there's a certain amount of magical Christianity that's happening here.
Right.
It's less about just like specifically stuff in the Bible, but you're finding out all these other little like weird asides. That's always kind of fun. Like some Gnostic kind of stuff.
Exactly. I love that stuff. But we start in Rome. June 6th at 6 a.m. You see what they did there?
Yes.
Yeah. You see that?
Yeah. That's when the movie came out too.
Right.
Even though it was a Sunday.
And the remake came out on June 6th in 2006. So Gregory Peck finds out his newborn child is dead and a Catholic priest just offers him up another baby, which is kind of funny, just out the gate.
Again, this is the last time I'll mention in the book.
Yeah.
Well, probably not, but this is the last time I should, because this is about as far as I read in the book. But,
I was just going to say
so the book sets up a lot more.
Yeah.
Catherine Thorne. First of all, Gregory Peck's character, Robert Thorne, in the book is named Jeremy, which excellent change away from Jeremy.
Right. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. Take that,
Terrible
Jeremy's
name.
out there.
Yeah. You can't be Gregory Peck if you're named Jeremy.
You can't be an ambassador with a name like Jeremy.
Although, I guess he's an ambassador to England, so that makes some sense. That's like the only, you're very niched into that. That's it. Maybe Australia. But anyway, that his wife, Catherine, and this played by Lee Remick, that they present her right out of the gate as being a lot more unstable.
Oh.
The baby dies and he tells the priest, Father Spoleto, he's like, this will destroy her.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, she wants to have this baby. It has to be hers. In the book, it sets up more about like their relationship and her being already showing some signs of being mentally pretty fragile. Whereas this, by removing that, I think smartly, and we can get more into the sexual politics about the movie later, but it does remove that to more like this is all his call. This is all what and his role is patriarch and his character that he's like, well, I can't tell her, she'll be destroyed. And so to protect my wife, who's just this fragile little angel,
right.
I'll make something up. And much like Pet Sematary, this is all done with in theory the best of intentions.
Of course,
he's like, I don't want to adopt, and then the priest is like, hey, wouldn't you know it? Got a brand new baby on the lot.
Got a spare baby out here.
Got a spare baby here. Yeah. Let's go look at it. It's very cute.
Kick the tires, kick the arms.
Yeah. barely any miles on this baby. You can fit so much Satan in this baby. But there's a nun holding it and it's looking all cute. And he's like, boy, I don't know. And goes for it.
Yeah.
Adopts the baby and then presents it to her, which is the thing I just was losing it immediately. Mm-hmm. Gregory Peck goes up to her, was like, here's your boy. That she was just waiting around. She gave birth to the thing, but they're like, yeah. We'll get it to you. Look, gotta let the dad see it first. That's way more important.
Right. Yeah. They start off this whole movie with this long kind of montage sequence about how in love they are. And I think it's kind of effective. Mm-hmm. Like maybe it is just the 70s, like, you know, kind of glossy filter on the lens ish type of thing. The dreamy quality to it, the music, all that. But, you know, I buy their relationship in the beginning here.
Yeah. The movie like jumps forward
immediately.
5 years after this. And Robert, he and his wife live in this very fancy ass house. And he announces to her that he's going to be the ambassador to England. Mm-hmm. That, you know, pack your bags. We're gonna go. During this time, they have Damien, and things are gonna be going fine for the first 5 years. Nothing's gone wrong. Nothing seems weird. It's very idyllic.
Yeah.
There is one point thinking about the fragility of the wife when they're like walking on a field, like on a hill. You see the sun in the background. Very pretty. Great cinematography in this movie. Yeah. By the way, by Gilbert Taylor, and some cool split diopter stuff too.
Yes.
Anyway, and they're walking, and she's carrying a dog that's like a dog on wheels. It's like a dog on a platform on wheels. And I was just like, so did he lie to her and tell her that's their dog too? Right. Trust me, honey, it's the dog.
It's the real dog.
We go into where they're going to live in England, which the wife picked out immediately.
Mm-hmm. I've already told them yes. I loved it the minute I saw it, huh?
That's a bit much.
Well, nothing's too much for the wife of the future president of the United States.
Already has presidential ambitions here.
They look at this one room, and Gregory Peck gets so horny at this one room that he and his wife go have sex somewhere else.
It's a nice room. I mean,
it's a great room.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong.
It's a nice
Once
room.
but it was like the idea of putting books in it, and he was like, "Oh boy."
Well, I mean, I'll tell you a secret about my predilections: books, buddy. Books in a big wooden room.
Oh, I'm going to read so much Harry Potter. But and I really like this. Where you just get like these stills of their life. Like on subsequent watchings, is just everything seems so phony in those stills.
Sure,
and it is like not because you know what's to come, but because you know this is all based on a lie that he's told his wife this, and their family's kind of fake, and it's almost, they seem very social climbing.
She's like an Instagram influencer or just a regular Instagram user.
Yeah. It seems very social climbing, and it transforms. The music becomes this creepy happy birthday song, not overly creepy.
Right.
Just weird enough. And it goes to Damien's 5th birthday party, which is this huge to do on their palatial estate grounds.
Merry-go-rounds and circus animals and all kinds of stuff there, like tons of kids. And, you know, it's definitely got the air of the parents are happy to be there as well, because this is a social function of their upper echelon. But most importantly, I call to order an official meeting of the David Warner fan club.
Absolutely.
Yes. All rise. We love David Warner here at this podcast.
Absolutely.
John and I have been members of a very long-standing joke between like 4 or 5 of us back in the Facebook days of holding a David Warner fan club and constantly posting about David Warner and such. So we love this man, and I love him in this movie.
Particularly like standing next to Gregory Peck.
Yeah.
He is so like pallid and Britishy, but still just hot as hell.
Yep.
Just working it.
Totally.
Just that goofy little ascot, but he's still David Warner.
Yep.
Boys have swag. David Warner has class.
Yeah, they're right. Yes. I wrote in my notes to ask our friend Jolene, who will hopefully be on the next episode, what the difference is between an ascot and a neckerchief. So if you're listening to this, Jolene, come with some answers. She does wardrobe for films. So I want to know.
Don't no one else Google it and send it to us. I want to hear about it from Jolene.
Yes. Only from her. Anyway,
I ain't clicking anything.
Yeah. Right. But we quickly get to, I don't know, I would say this is probably the most famous scene in the movie, except for maybe the sheet glass. But
it's a popular one.
Yeah. And I love it. I find it really chilling, just her delivery and everything. So Holly, the nanny, who is Jack Palance's daughter, which I didn't know. Yeah. Yeah. She is the current nanny. We don't really know much about her. I think we barely even see her in the film up to this point, but
we've seen her a couple of times and she's very doting on Damien, but she's a nanny. And so that doesn't seem strange.
Right. So she is seen on like the third story of the house or so on a ledge. She's got a noose around her neck and she yells,
"Look at me, Damien. It's all for you."
And then hangs herself in front of all those children, goes crashing through a window. And up until that point, I guess you could say she locks eyes with a dog. This spooky dog. I guess, they could be like hellhounds or something like that. But like, it is kind of funny because this dog is basically just like staring her down, just being like, go hang yourself, Yeah. Yeah.
Which, as the movie continues, there is sort of I don't know that they fully explain it, but there is sort of this idea that like, if you are more open to these suggestions, much the same way that like the way God would talk to people, whatever, that if you're attuned to these wavelengths, that you're more likely to get that. And so I don't know if she's like she was like fully on board as like, I'm a Satanist, I'm part of this cabal, if she was just open to that, or if she's just like dumb enough to get hypnotized by a dog.
I think the latter. That's how I go for it, because she's not like the next nanny who clearly has an agenda. Like Holly doesn't have an agenda at this moment. And I feel like she's just being used as like some weird pawn. I don't know what the purpose is. Oh, well, duh. Of course I know what the purpose is. Get her out and then
get Blaylock in.
Get the new nanny in. So
there's a lot of this, the whole machinations around all this that seem very Baroque and convoluted. At the same time, you're not entirely sure how much Damien is involved directly with this. And I'd like to think that it's kind of like, maybe it's a Father, Son, Holy Ghost thing where they're all separate, but all one. And so he's actually Satan, but he's like, you know what? This took so much planning to set this all up. I had to wait for the heavens to get here. I had to make sure that they had sex right at the right time to have a baby so I could switch with them and get into this like luxury that he's like, the first 5 years, that's my time.
Right.
I'm taking a vacation. I'm just going to have some fun, see what this is all about. Kind of gets lost in it. And then he's like, I got to go hypnotize a dog. Right. Sorry. I got it. Let me just go do that.
The work bell chimed. Lunch break's over. Got to get back to being Satan.
Like, all right. Eyes on the prize, Satan. Come on.
Right. Holly, the nanny, hangs herself and party's over. And then Damien sees the dog in the distance and waves to him, which is kind of cute. That scene, I had forgotten how soon that scene takes place. Like it's only 14 minutes into the film and it's just, it's so classic. Yeah.
What you were saying about like this stuff kind of all being potentially just coincidental. That is like, is that Damien being like, hey, good job, dog. I'll make sure you're in the good part of hell. Yeah. Or, is it just like, oh, it's a doggy? Yeah,
it's certainly that the dog wants his wings, like in A Wonderful Life. He's finally doing enough things to get his devil wings or whatever.
Every time a nanny hangs herself, a dog goes to hell.
Yes. A priest comes to see Robert in his office and encourages him immediately to accept Jesus as Savior, take the sacrament, communion, says that he was in the hospital the night that the boy was born.
What do you know about my son?
Everything.
And what is that?
I saw its mother.
You saw my wife.
I saw its mother.
You're referring to my wife.
Its mother, Mr. Thorne.
This is blackmail, then come out and say it. What is it that you're trying to say?
His mother was a...
The priest finally gets escorted out by security. At some point in there, David Warner is like developing film of the priest. He took a quick shot of him as he was getting tossed out of the grounds, and he noticed something like is printed on the photo, like a giant mark of some sort.
Yeah, which made me think of the magic camera in Final Destination 3. So,
right. Yes.
Yeah. Wonder where they got that idea. But this priest, Father Brennan, it got me thinking because a little bit later, there'll be a scene where they go to an Episcopalian church. Damien starts freaking out about it. And I was thinking about the Christianity in this and how the Catholics really fumbled the bag because you got the beginning, like, okay, these priests, they're in on it. Satan's already got them. Yep. that convince him to take the baby anyway. This guy that's supposed to save him, Father Brennan, who we find out later was a Satanist, but apparently is reformed.
Right.
Boy, he just goes about this in the worst way.
Yeah.
Because he's just yelling at him like, you need to accept Jesus. It's not like, hey, here's what's going on.
Right.
This isn't your son. This son is bad. Let's do a quick communion. Get this. That's right. No, just starts yelling at him immediately.
Hassling him. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like Episcopalians are just loving this. They're like, yeah, look at that. Our church actually hurt that kid or hurt the devil.
Right.
What Catholics do? Nothing. You guys blew it. We had to pick up your pieces.
Yeah. Your solution is go hassling an ambassador.
Yeah, it's just yell at people.
Right.
I mean, yeah, that sounds very Catholic. Like, feel guilty about it.
Right. Sure.
But, so he absolutely blows it trying to convince Robert Thorne, who thinks it's a blackmail thing, who thinks it's like he's trying to show up and be like, no, I know your son's adopted, so I want money.
Yeah. There's a new nanny in town. She's to replace Holly. And she just immediately looks creepy, much the same way that Damien looks very creepy. Like this woman reminds me of the actress who was in Pet Sematary, the original one who hung herself.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that woman who I always associate with that one episode of the X-Files, being a Satanist as well. So she just has a very particular look on her, and I think she's very effective in this role.
Yeah, that is Billy Whitelaw as Mrs. Baylock, the nanny, and she's great because she has a lot of menace around her. Mm-hmm. Again, this whole movie, you're like, well, is this part of some cabal thing, or is she just like a mean nanny?
Sure.
Like this willful kind of crummy nanny, until it all sort of explodes a little bit at the end. But great. I'm surprised, honestly, that she's not more of like a regular horror face.
Oh,
you know
sure.
Like,
that
I feel
makes
like
sense.
I should be a lot more familiar with this character because she is great. And Billy Whitelaw just does a fantastic job.
Yeah, yeah. Once she leaves to go meet Damien for the first time, Catherine and Robert kind of had this moment where they both ask each other, like,
I like her.
She seems all right.
Where'd you find her?
Where did I find her? Yeah. I didn't find her. I assumed you found her.
neither one of them did any of the footwork to hire this woman. So again, is this a coincidence where she just ends up there, or is there an agency that supplies ambassadors with nannies should they need them?
Right. And then it's also that sort of level of uninvolvement with their child, where it's like, well, first of all, they have a nanny. And if you have nannies, I'm not trying to fault anyone that has a nanny. If you can make that work for you, great. But in this particular case, what is Catherine Thorne doing?
Right.
That she needs a nanny. You know nothing about her. She just is a stay-at-home mom. She doesn't even, as we've seen, she doesn't even necessarily like go to all these functions with him. He leaves to go hang out with his old college roommate who's now the president.
Yes.
And she's like, nah, I'm just going to hang out with Damien.
Yeah.
They need this nanny for reasons because you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Because that's when you are at that level.
Yeah. It's almost like maintaining appearances at that point where she's just like, well, we need a nanny.
Yeah, well, and I think that's a through line through this, because as we get further on, there's a part where she says, like, straight up,
Wrong? What could be wrong with our child, Robert? We're beautiful people, aren't we?
and I don't think there's a hint of irony in that line.
Right. When Baylock finds Damien, though, and they're left alone for the first time, she does say,
Have no fear, little one. I am here to protect thee.
and Damien smiles. So that could be the most kind of vulgar display of power in this. Is it a coincidence or not?
Yeah, but is that just part of the nanny code? Was she reciting like
Sure.
like the Green Lantern thing?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
It's that rhyme, but she just said the last part out loud.
Right. Yeah. So you think every nanny in London, first time they see the kid that they're charged with, gives them that creepy look and that creepy line?
Yeah, I think the first nanny crash landed their ship, and then someone stumbled on it, and they're like, "You have the powers of the nanny now," and so it's part of their creed
Part of their
that they say
whole
every
thing.
time.
Right.
Yeah, it was an umbrella and those black shoes.
Yeah, right. The next scene, Ms. Baylock does not want to dress Damien for church. It is pretty funny how she just straight up doesn't follow instructions. Just like, yeah I'm just not going to do that. You know? Yeah,
because he's like, we're going to go to the park. Catherine is like, I specifically told you to dress him for church. And she's like, hey.
Excuse me for speaking my mind, Mom, but do you really think a 5-year-old will understand the goings-on of an Episcopal wedding?
Your church is boring.
Yeah.
Snooze fest, but being in the park rules. Catherine puts her foot down. He's coming with us.
Yeah.
There's a good reason why Miss Baylock did not want Damien to go to the church.
Yes, because as they approach, it's revealed that Damien has a kick-ass top hat on. That's the most important part.
Yes.
Love the top hat on that kid.
Also had a great little suit at his birthday.
Yeah, he did. he's a sartorially minded family here for this kid, for the devil. But yeah, he starts losing his mind and attacking his parents as they get closer and closer to the church.
This scene is particularly well done. You see the looming through the car window and otherwise you see the looming front of the church kind of coming up on you. And it's very much played kind of from his point of view, or at least you get the sense of that something feels off about this. But then he's also not speaking. Like they're worried because he's getting all quiet.
Oh, right. Yeah.
He already kind of has a fever. And so it's not clear as to, again, like this coincidental thing is like, is it because we're going to the church? Is he sick? Because he just starts having a tantrum.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah.
And anyone that has had a small child, I'm sure has like, oh, this completely unreasonable reaction to just nothing.
Yeah.
That can happen at any time. But at the same time, the way it's presented and put together is that it does seem like the church itself is ominous.
Yes.
Not that necessarily that, boy, it's bad for this kid to be at a church, but more just like something, this interaction is bad somehow.
Right. From his point of view.
And so they're just like, well, we can't be seen having a child having a fit. So let's just go home.
Right. So they bail. The dog from earlier that convinced Holly to hang herself is now inside. Baylock allowed the dog to come in, and it frightens Robert. She makes the case that the dog would be a great guard dog, but Robert isn't having it, even though allegedly Damien has taken a liking to this dog. And here again, I admire the chutzpah of her just trying to convince the family of seeing things her way.
I've had that before. I've had conversations with friends before where they'll say something like, maybe we'll disagree about a movie. Yeah. And they'll be like, well, my wife liked it. I'm like, well, what is that supposed to do for me? Like, I'm like, oh, well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can't possibly not like it now. Yeah. But it is, again, this is a case of her. Is it that there's something more, foul afoot, or is she just a jerk?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I like the dog. Damon seemed stoked about it. So
guard dogs are
guess
good,
what? You
right?
have a dog now. Yeah. Shut up.
Yeah, right. Mom and Damien go for a visit at a kind of drive-through zoo. Is there we just called it a safari back in Ohio, I guess, but it's a big animal enclosure. The creepy score kicks in again as Damien just stares down a bunch of giraffes who then get scared and gallop away, which I thought was kind of cute.
It's just ominous.
Right.
Because we haven't, like you said, we've spent no time with Damien in every little machination of his or anything we don't know about. And I think, we've complained in or critiqued in other movies, you didn't tell us anything, all the stuff. But I think that withholding of information is very expertly done here. Yes. And serves a very good purpose.
So they continue driving and they drive through a baboon enclosure, and boy, those baboons do not like Damien. But instead of running away, they start attacking the car, and that looks terrifying to me completely.
Yes, it's very, very well done. Yeah, because they don't break windows or anything like that, but they're just coming after the car. Yeah. And it's very well put together, very, very frightening, very tense. Because even though your answer is like, yeah, you can just step on the gas, which she does eventually, like, sure, it still catches you off guard enough that doesn't seem like the correct response right away. Right. But this was also one of the animal handlers that helped out with this scene. Apparently, sometime after the film was killed by a lion or a tiger by some reports. And that relates to the whole Curse of the Omen movie.
Curse of the Omen. Yeah. Several people either died or came very close to dying around the creation of this film.
Yeah, like both Gregory Peck and the author David Setzler, separate planes were struck by lightning. Right. Gregory Peck wasn't canceled his flight for one plane that ended up crashing and then going off the runway and then crashed into the pilot's family. Yes. That had just dropped him off. Again, very Final Destination. Right. They were almost like they were going to eat at a restaurant that right before they were going to leave to go there, it got blown up by the IRA. But I do like that Richard Donner is like, these were all just coincidences. Yeah. Like after the fact, he's like, if we were making a romantic comedy, no one would care.
Yeah, of course.
But because we're doing a sane thing. And yeah, so on Shudder, there's Cursed Films 2 has an episode about it. It's pretty well done. And they talk to a lot of like black magic dudes and witches. And I, as much as I absolutely want to believe in what you're saying, you guys are just goofballs.
Yeah. Maybe I did see, I do remember those people. So maybe I did watch that one. Yeah.
I mean, it's great. It's really well done. I highly recommend it. But at the same time, so I'm kind of like, oh God, these nerds. But then they bring in a guy to kind of debunk the whole thing and just talk about how you're looking at it this particular way. So you want to see this pattern. Yep. And he's wearing a little pin that says skeptic. And I'm like, you know what, Wizards, you guys are great. That guy's a dork.
That guy sucks.
Like,
God. Go hang out with Richard Dawkins or something,
Yeah.
you know?
Ask me about getting lectured. I just don't want to deal with that guy.
Yeah.
But so this infamously had a lot of negative, bad stuff happening to it. But again, it was all like, with the exception of this guy, the animal handler, there's a lot of, and there was another I forget who it was now, but
it's like a props master or something like that.
Yeah, like his wife got decapitated, and allegedly it was by a sign that said Omen 66.6 kilometers away.
Wow.
OMMEN. But there are also those that say it was a blessing. It was Satan going, hey, hooray for this movie.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I fully don't buy the idea that Satan is like, well, don't talk about me.
Right.
So I'm going to punish, probably because it's either these are all coincidences, or it's basically like Skeletor rules. If you watch the He-Man Christmas special, as my family does every year, and I highly recommend it, that you do the same, particularly if you have recorded old commercials along with it.
Yep.
There's a part where Skeletor has to do something nice. The Christmas spirit goes like,
well, I don't like to feel good. I like to feel evil.
And I think that's Satan. That's how he shows his thumbs up. He's like, hey, I just want to say what a great job you're doing. I'm going to blow up some Irish people.
Right.
I'm going to strike a plane with some lightning.
And decapitate a few people too. Yeah. Maybe he just wants to keep a low profile, Yeah,
he's just, he's going to act a little bit differently because, if you're basing Satan's actions on the sort of broke stuff he does in this movie, he's not going to come right out and have a dog be like, hey, great job.
Yeah.
He's going to do things to the side.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think he did, because I think he's happy with how this movie turned out. And rightfully so. It's a good movie.
It's a good movie. Yeah. And, there was, I believe The Exorcist had a bunch of supposed strange goings on around the set and stuff like that. So if nothing else, 1970s marketing companies for major motion picture companies would really jump on that kind of stuff and promote that,
Gregory Peck, we're going to strap you in foil and tie you to the wing of a plane.
Yeah.
Then when you get hit by lightning, we'll say the devil did it.
Right. That night in bed, the mom says she needs to see a psychiatrist, which I'm sure was even more like my impression of seeing a psychiatrist in like the 60s and 70s. I get the impression that people didn't like to talk about that kind of thing back then.
Yeah, there's that, or you're in a Woody Allen movie, and that's all you talk about.
There you go.
But for being, this is also where she mentions that we're one of the beautiful people. Right. She's starting to feel that something's off about Damien.
Yes,
but feels bad that she feels that way, that can't possibly be right, even though without question, some weird stuff's been going on.
Totally.
And I think, again, like that, focusing on them and their reaction to things rather than Damien being a little rascal is a much smarter move, because you get to see, it makes it more human, first of all, in that, these are the characters reacting.
It's a family drama.
Yeah. But it also, I think, and we can get into more at the end, like speaks to the larger themes that this movie presents in terms of, like I said, the sort of the sexual politics and the patriarchy and all that. Because I don't think the women in this movie are either weak or evil. That's it.
That's true. Yeah.
But I think that serves a larger purpose at the same time. Being that way also undercuts. It's not being pro that way. If it's like, it's not being pro patriarchy.
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, the fact that she's like, I should go see a psychiatrist, and he's like, it's cool. Whatever you need.
Right.
I think is a nice moment between them.
Yes. Cut to some rugby. David Warner is there covering the match, so I'm already a fan of this scene. Robert gets accosted by the priest again.
Tomorrow, 2:30, Bishop's Park. 5 minutes and you'll never see me again. Your wife is in danger. She'll die unless you come.
Warner gets another shot of the priest as he goes to develop his film. And again, there's a giant mark in the photo that appears to be almost stabbing into the priest from the sky into his shoulder, like smudge of some sort.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was something wrong with the camera, because earlier Gregory Peck's going to work and is getting questioned about his nanny's suicide.
Right.
And David Warner, his character Jennings, is covering that, and he accidentally bumps into him, cause him to drop his camera, and he's like, "Oh, just send the bill to my office."
Yeah.
And David Warner's like, "How about this? You owe me, buddy."
Yeah. Which is never a good move. I'd rather just get out of, just get out of debt.
Money.
Right.
Cool. Yeah. I'd love to be in debt to you.
for something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next day, Robert meets that priest in the park, who then quotes Revelations at him. And the priest states that the mother is pregnant and that Damien will kill the baby in the womb.
God's name are you talking about?
Your son, Mr. Thorne. The son of the devil. He will kill the unborn child. Then he will kill your wife. And when he is certain to inherit all that is yours, then, Mr. Thorne, he will kill you.
That's enough.
And with your wealth and power, he will establish his counterfeit kingdom here on Earth.
So that's a lot to take in on this random Tuesday afternoon. Also,
should have led with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Should have led rather than the yelling at you about communion. Should have led with that.
So it's revealed that the mom is pregnant with a second child, and that Damien is going to find a way to kill that child.
And I love the way that scene looks too, just the way it's framed with like his face. You can see the fence kind of going out to the side of it, and just he looks like he's in so much pain,
right? And
just like that, he feels like shit. And we find out why later, that he's actually been dying of I think it's cancer.
I think so, yeah.
But just I love that exchange, and the actor that plays him, Patrick Troughton, I think is great. And it's just like it's really nicely intense.
Yes. A storm picks up while the priest walks through the park after they have parted ways. Lightning starts striking various trees on the way over, and he tries to take refuge in a church. He starts pounding on the front door to be let in. Lightning strikes, I guess it's an antenna of some sort, or a lightning rod, I suppose, on the top of the church, which causes the steel rod to fall right towards him and impale him through, I guess, the shoulder, and then down through the rest of his body.
Yeah, it just pins him.
Yeah.
And it's a little awkward how it's done, because there's a lot of him just screaming, oh no, instead of trying to move.
Right, yeah.
So it's the pacing of it's a little strange, but I do like how it kind of pins him.
Yeah.
And because it's very ridiculous. And then it also, I learned that because of this movie, that shows the danger of that most churches now are built on giant treads that keep it going at 88 miles an hour. So now if it gets struck by lightning, it'll just go back in time.
Oh, smart. Yeah.
Out of danger.
Out of danger. And back to when? Just whenever.
Yeah. I mean, I guess whatever church wants to set it to.
Right. Yeah. That's the job of the board. Yeah.
Yeah. That's an ecumenical matter.
Right. Take it up with them. But, evidently the effect was done with just this kind of wooden stake that they painted and a piece of fishing line that was put into the ground all the way up to the church steeple, and they just sent the stake down on its own merry way down this little fishing line, and it was just targeted to go right behind him. The effect looks great. I know what you mean about the pacing of it, but the effect looks great.
It is great, yeah.
And I just love the simplicity of a $10 wooden stake and some fishing line is your kill shot. But
and I'm caught up in the moment enough that it's fine.
Yeah. Of course. Next scene, Damien is playing with some billiards in the room and making a ton of noise. At this point, the mom just asked Balak just to take that kid out. She needs a break. Not kill him, but just take the kid out of the room. Tells Robert that she does not want any more children.
Robert, I don't ever want to have any more children.
All right.
Then you'll agree to an abortion. I'm pregnant, Robert. I just found out this morning.
That's a huge drop. It's also just wild that it is this situation. It doesn't seem so much like I'm letting you know this is happening because I care about you and this is the sense of relationship, but more just I can't do this unless the husband says so.
Yes.
Is the sense I got of it. Because it's still, things were a lot different back then. This is in the middle of second wave feminism and all that. And so he's very taken aback.
Yes.
So he agrees to go see the psychiatrist because he thinks that maybe the psychiatrist is doing something to her.
Right.
That's why she's feeling so bad.
Robert goes to see the psychiatrist. He tells Robert that she's been saying that Damien is evil and he's weird and feels like Damien is not even her son. Tells him that he has to agree to an abortion, which he just doesn't want to do yet. They don't get into this, but I could also just assume as kind of one of those, a man of his station needs a large family and he does not condone an abortion and that kind of stuff. They don't get into that, but I could just assume that that's the case.
Yes, there's a very light touch with a lot of that. And but I think it's still there. Again, that's sort of that social status concern that they have.
Yeah. I mean, he expects to be a president.
And I think that's part of it with all of it. It's I couldn't possibly, it's not just that my wife would be devastated if this lie came out, but just he couldn't even tell her like, hey, free baby.
Yeah, right. Robert drives back home, cross-cut with Damien riding in circles on his tricycle, which is pretty darn annoying. Like, I'll give him that for sure. As Baylock watches, and you cue the big gothic choir music again.
Yeah, but it's like the expression on her face is just, you can read so much into it.
Yes.
Because it is just like, oh, is it that, oh, this baby, this sweet kid is playing, is like something being transmitted to her about like,
sure,
he's gearing up his evil. He's revving up that evil engine. Right. And then she opens the door and lets him out. Or is it just like, you know, he should just go play.
True.
She reads it. She does it in this way that it seems like there could be a lot of malevolence about it. Or again, she's just a shitty nanny.
Yeah, that could be. So she opens the door. Damien trikes his way down the hall and hits the chair that his mother just happens to be standing on. I think she's like trying to water a plant or something like that. She falls over the railing while he peeks over the edge and watches. And
that fall is amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
She didn't want, she got too nervous about doing the stunt or something? Because it is basically.
She heard about what Friedkin did to Ellen Burstyn in The Exorcist, who is still to this day dealing with that back pain. Jeez. When she gets pulled across the room. And she heard about that just a few years earlier. And she's like, nope, not doing that stunt. And so they had to figure out a different way to do it for good reason.
Yeah. And they have her standing there and it's basically like a wall and they do a fake thing where she falls and like turns.
Yeah.
But I think that uncanniness really works well.
Oh, completely. Robert runs to the hospital to see her and they find out that she has lost the baby. She's afraid, says,
Don't let him kill me. Don't let him kill me.
Robert goes home and checks on Damien and finds the dog guarding him in his room, and a great creepy shot that reminded me of Pet Sematary when the cat is standing over Gage's crib. They have lost the baby, and again, is it did Damien know that she was pregnant? How would he know? You know, is he really Satan? Did he just like trike into her accidentally, like you were saying? It's great. They leave that very, very ambiguous. They didn't have a moment in like a lesser movie where they sit down and explain to Damien, you're going to have a little brother or sister, you know, and then he gets all angry. They skip right past that.
But it is enough to start really getting Robert wondering about what's going on and about sort of Damien and his history.
David Warner calls him. His name. This is where I wrote down his name is Keith Jennings, but he'll always be David Warner to me. Yeah. Robert visits his dark room where he's developing the photos and shows the photos of the nanny and the priest and how he is capturing what it looks like instruments of their deaths in each one of these photos.
He calls in his favor. He's like, this is the moment that David Warner calls in his favor. He's like, come look at this stuff. That's all I want to show you. And then they go to Father Brennan's room. Oh boy, Father Brennan's room.
Yes. Yeah. Again, I love this kind of stuff. There are Bible pages all over. There are 47 crosses.
Yes, 47 crosses. Yeah, he's got every inch of the thing is covered in pages of the Bible. Like he's really trying to keep something out.
So good.
And the cops let David Warner just go rummage around because
he's David Warner. That's why.
First of all, you're David Warner. Second of all, this guy was a goof, and who cares?
Which is just a funny, like, I know they skate over that, but that is such a funny thing to think about, where cops are just like, this guy was kind of crazy, so have at it. You know, he is a lesser person, so he does not deserve dignity. Go ahead and take photos.
But then David Warner's like, but here's the deal. Here's also why I contact you, because like, so this flaw on the photo shows where the thing actually struck him, which I love that the dead body pinned to the ground is on the cover of the newspaper.
I was just going to say that. We forgot to mention that earlier. That cracked me up. Like, I mean, I think it's even the Daily Mail, which is a pretty like tabloid type of
I don't know the history of it to know like how far back it was. It was always that way,
right?
But but the fact that it's not like a body under a sheet, it's just like, hey everyone, here's a dead priest.
There's a dead priest impaled by a spike on the front cover. Extra.
Look, you might think it's unethical, but I think it's cool. He died in a cool way, so that trumps that. Mm-hmm. But he's like, so look, you can see he's got the stick coming out of that. Look at this picture I took of your nanny at the birthday party where she's got what looks like a noose around her neck. And Greg Peck's like, oh, that's weird. And he's like, yeah, but here's the thing. I have a stake in this to finding this stuff out because he accidentally caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror, and he's got one too. He's got a
stake.
He's got a stake. He's got a stake. There's a stake in me, so I've got a stake in this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that there's a flaw in the picture that's like an arrow or triangle, bifurcating his head and his body.
And they also find out that the priest had a birthmark that looks like 666, which to me is just kind of funny.
Which, because I was looking that up because that's a key point later, and I wasn't sure. Allegedly, I guess the thing is that you get that once you become a Satanist. That just appears on your body, and so it's a bigger deal when Damien just sort of has it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, it does makes it seem like, wait a minute, so is he like Damien's brother?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Here's where we get into a lot of the lore too, which again, I'm a sucker for this kind of stuff.
This first clipping is from the Astrologer's Monthly. Reports an unusual phenomenon. A comet changed its shape into a glowing star like the Star of Bethlehem 2,000 years ago, only this one was on the other side of the world, the European continent, 5 years ago.
Robert admits here that he does not know whose son he is raising. So he admits to David Warner, as you would anything to David Warner, if you need to release your conscience.
That's how they caught the Green River Killer. They just brought David Warner and he was like, yeah, it was me.
Yeah. But he finally confesses that Damien is not his biological son.
Yeah, so they become Devil Squad, and they're going to go investigate what happened.
Man, I would love to run around with David Warner in the 70s, run around Europe, like chasing after the devil together. Absolutely. Like, there's a movie right there.
Yeah.
Man, the Warner rides out. Man.
So they decide to go figure out, let's go look at the hospital where this happened. So they go to Italy. When they get there, apparently the hospital had a huge fire.
Yes.
Not that long before, I think, not that long after the birth happened.
Right.
You got to figure out if anyone that still knows it is there. So they start talking to this nurse/nun on duty. And they find out that, Father Spoleto, now he's in a monastery. He's retired. He got really injured in the fire. It's a miracle he survived, but now he's in a monastery. You can probably go find him there. And then this blew my mind. This is up there with Canadian doors from Wishmaster 4, Italian elevators. What did she get into?
Yes. Yeah.
It's like something out of a video game. You know how here's the things going up, here's things going down. You have to hop on one as it comes close.
Totally.
It's just these compartments scrolling by, and she just hops in one and takes off.
They do not look safe.
They do not look safe.
Right. But, I'm a man of a certain age. I would not go near that thing.
So I want to go on a cool Italian elevator tour.
Right.
What about the pieces of artwork? No elevators.
No elevators. Yep. Yeah. So they go after the monastery.
They keep getting more and more remote. Where they're going.
It starts to get kind of Indiana Jonesy.
Yes.
They're on a quest to find, various MacGuffins of religious nature.
Yeah.
And again, I love that stuff. So
we got to find this scarred priest.
Right. And so I really love this sequence too, because man, that monastery is equal parts very calming and beautiful and so creepy.
Extremely creepy.
When they first show the establishing shot of the outside, I was just like, oh, I'd like to go there. That looks nice and peaceful. You see the inside shots, all these very creepy priests just sitting there murmuring, I guess they call it praying to themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
They call it praying.
They call it praying. I call it murmuring. Evidently, they find this priest and he has abandoned Christ. Robert demands to know who the mother of Damien is, and he writes a name, which is the name of a graveyard nearby.
Well, what's great, so because he's barely functional.
Yeah.
But when he seems like he's actually reacting to what they're saying, the other guy just hands him a big piece of charcoal to write on this slate. Is you guys don't have any parchment or something, or just a giant crayon? And he struggles and he writes, and it looks like he just writes crim or something. And you're like,
right,
cool, thanks, buddy. But one of the other monks there goes, oh, I know where that is. That's a funeral plot, a burial ground. You can go check that out there. It's about 50 miles north of Rome. They got to go back in the car and drive somewhere else. What a hassle.
Yeah. They finally find it. They hop the fence to the graveyard. Graveyard looks pretty cool. Like, it looks very much like on a set, but it looks cool.
But it looks cool. But I was thinking about their journey to that, because it takes a little bit of time of them getting to it. And I'm like, this probably just we just watched it, but I'm like, this is more effective than Pet Sematary for sure. Creating the mood of like the place they're going to being creepy and mysterious. It really sets it up nicely.
It's very like ramshackle too. Like there were not neat rows of gravestones. They just kind of like look just tossed off. Which kind of makes you wonder about why even go through this. Right.
But whatever. Cross the T's, dot the I's, because it's very unlikely that if you have, because they find the grave of his alleged mother. Grady Peck's like, well, let's crack her open. I want to get a look at this dead woman. I love the shot because they open it up and inside is the body of a dog.
Yes. Yeah.
And which they never spell out. It's all very like alluded to, because it's like, well, does that mean she wasn't there? This was replaced later, right? Because in truth, Damien's mother was a jackal. Yeah, there you go. In the book, and he even when Father Brennan says it, because he's like his mother was a jack, and they cut it off. Right. But then when he realizes that and lets the stone, because it's their old stone graves, and lets the stone fall and it cracks and falls in. It's just his whole life crumbling. I love that. Yeah. And he's like, but the son is buried next to her.
If it's an animal too, then maybe my child is alive.
And they fight and get it open. No, it's a baby with its skull caved in. Skeleton with a skull caved in. Brutal. Just
that might be the most haunting shot of the whole movie. And again, they don't spell it out, but they just said like, his son died, which means somebody at that hospital caved in a baby's skull. Yeah. And that's it.
And again, like the book opens that way, which is jarring, which you're like, oh my God, oh shit. Yeah, but totally. Like letting that build up and reveal to, because it's less, there's this like a shock value moment of that, and more just what that means in the context of all this other stuff. And for Gregory Peck, terrifying.
Yeah. He just starts saying over and over, like, they murdered my son, just in time for a bunch of dogs looking very similar to the dogs back at his estate chase them out of the graveyard. And a little bit of a goofy scene, but it's just dogs.
But I will say, Pet Sematary Bloodlines, you could learn a thing about how to do a dog attack, because I think it's still very well done. There's a lot of close-ups and a lot of like, you're not real sure what's action is happening in that close-up, but you still have a good idea of where the characters are, the geography of everything. Terrifying scene. And also, I guess dudes cannot be hypnotized by dogs.
Oh, there you go.
That's only for women, I guess.
Yeah,
only the dogs don't even try to hypnotize them. They
just go right for the violence.
Yeah, they just failed that throw, or maybe Gregory Peck succeeded on a saving throw.
There you go. Robert calls Kathy, who is in the hospital, and he wants her to leave London and go to Rome immediately.
I love that, because she is just encased in casts, and he's like, just get on a plane. What is your problem?
Listen to me. Yes. So she starts getting up, and she tries to change, but Baylock shows up.
Yeah, she's caught in her mosquito netting that she's wearing over her nightgown for some reason.
Right.
And she hears a noise coming in. There's Baylock just looking full evil.
Great. Yeah, and you basically just get a bunch of close-ups of their eyes back and forth. So they have a stare-off, essentially, and Kathy loses and tumbles out of the hospital window, falls into an ambulance.
Onto a gurney.
Yes.
And so first of all, like, what are the roofs of those ambulances made out of?
Sure.
But also, I just couldn't help but think of a guy who like just loaded that gurney in there. It's like thumping. He's like, and has to pull it back out and wheel it back into the hospital.
At this point, I just have in my notes, what kind of ambassador stuff is he supposed to be doing right now? Because, not that I need a bunch of stuff about his day job, but it did occur to me, like, he's like globetrotting with David Warner right now and not doing his like official ambassador duties anymore.
Like it's probably pretty smooth sailing. We have
between
good
America and England.
Yeah,
there you go.
This thing runs itself. I got a competent staff.
Yeah, it's more of a like a title job than any actual real work.
Yeah.
So David Warner shows up to say they need to go to Megiddo.
Kathy is dead. I want Damien to die too.
That is so great. Like, because he is just crushed.
Yes.
He's just laying there on the ground, just staring. And David Warner comes in, and again, I love this choice for this exposition dump, where David Warner's been out doing the legwork.
Yes.
And he comes back and is like, so I find out we got to go to this place. We got to find this guy. Gregory Peck's like, yeah, I know who that is. But he's also just like staring off into space, not even looking at David Warner, because it's not about the quest. It's about like what happened to him at this moment. Like, what about like these feelings? And that moment where he's like, I want Damien to die too. That leads to some stuff. But just in that moment, that despair that his choice at the beginning of the movie has upended his life and destroyed everything. That he's like, I want that kid dead.
Yeah. And it's so effective to the point where evidently on the set, him and Gregory Peck and Richard Donner got into a full-on argument about this scene because Peck wanted to destroy the room in rage and sadness. And he says, well, I guess I have to listen to you because you're the director. And later on, he saw how the scene played out with that just like crushing despair. And he was like, okay, Donner, you were right. Point one for you.
And I think it also works for the impotency of his power. That like destroying the room is an act of something. Like is he's doing something as pointless as it is. He's still doing something, but this is like he's just become more and more powerless in the face of whatever he's up against.
Yeah, that's true.
And that despair is just taking hold of him. And I think that's a way more effective way to go about it.
And here is in my notes where I wrote, we haven't seen Damien in forever, like, which is just more of a, he's not killer kid running around.
Right.
It's just all these things are happening around, and maybe because of him, maybe not, but like we haven't even seen the kid in forever.
Because I was thinking about other evil children that I hate. And not related to this podcast, just in general.
Just in general.
Well, and I was thinking about how, like, you know, because the kid in the movie is really pretty benign. Like you said, when after he watches his mom fall, and he's just looking at it. He's not like, So I'm not angry at him in the same way. Like, I have a legitimate hatred for the kid from Problem Child. Like, I hate that kid. Like, if I met that actor,
right,
he could be the nicest guy ever. I don't fucking care. I hate you.
Right.
Like, just that's there. Or like,
I remember I even hated that movie when I was a kid too.
Yeah, this
annoying.
didn't come from like they're like, how dare he disrespect John Ritter? No, just even being a kid, I'm like, no, screw that kid. Or like the wiener from the Babadook, hate that kid. If like Damien was that guy, you'd be like, yeah, he's the devil, kill him, whatever. I don't care. But the fact that he's normal, he's just like a kid, you can understand why. Like, why would you believe that this kid is capable of evil?
Yeah. I mean, he is kind of creepy looking, but he doesn't act on it.
Anyway, I just wanted to say, screw you, kid from Problem Child.
And that wiener from Babadook.
Yeah, I hate that wiener kid. But I think that's still, again, like keeping him out of it for most of it and having him be, if not fully benign, at least like not overtly evil. I think was a good choice. Because you don't see him for a lot of it, and then when you do, it's like, oh yeah. This kid sucks.
I'm willing to bet that the series really holds on to that as the movies go forward.
Without question,
Right. They travel to the city to an archaeological dig. Again, I love this kind of stuff. It's the city where Christianity began. Their guide excuses David Warner, which I didn't know you could actually do, but it shows Robert an artifact by asking David Warner to leave, which I would never, ever
banish
do that.
David Warner.
Yeah.
But that actor, I got super excited when I saw him. That's Leo McKern, who he's in Lady Hawk, if you're a fan of that movie, but I mainly know, and he's been in a ton of stuff, like great British actor, but I mainly know him from a couple episodes of The Prisoner, particularly like one of the final two, and he's fantastic. And so I got super excited to see him.
Nice. Yeah. And
I was hoping like we'd get to see a little bit more of him, but I still was excited to see him as we did. But yeah, he is the exorcist Bugenhagen, or the Antichrist expert.
Yes.
And is like, let me lay it down, which is frustrating because like he does explain that like you have to do this. I don't understand necessarily why, because it's not like he's a blood relative of Damien, but he's his adopted father.
Right.
But whatever. He's got to basically take these special magical knives, 7 daggers, and then he's got to go to hallowed ground, like go to an altar of a church and like stab him in the middle. That will kill his physical body. And then you need to kill a spiritual body by putting the other ones in, radiating outwards in the form of a cross.
Yes.
This is not a human child. Make no mistake.
This is a matter of life and death. This is to save the world. You go take care of it. I'm not going to help.
Yeah.
But you go take care of it. where's the rest of Christianity to help him out?
Yeah, right.
You know,
I mean, at least join his adventuring party.
Yeah.
And be the third person.
Because Satanists, look at what they got accomplished. Working together. Just saying. Yeah. Collectivism.
Yeah. Where is the power of the church?
Yeah.
Where's the Pope?
Yeah.
You know?
You don't think you could go like, look, Pope, look at this magic birthmark I got from being a Satanist. I suppose though, if you go to the Pope and you're like, hey, as a Satanist, they're gonna be like, get out of here. I don't want to hear what you have to say. I'm the Pope.
Sure. Robert is getting the instructions on how to kill his child and explains here that there should be a 666 birthmark below the hair.
Yes, because he hasn't seen it yet. She was like, it's probably below the hair.
Right. And confirms that Baylock is an apostate of hell who will die before permitting Damien to be killed. Robert and David Warner argue over the idea of killing Damien.
These are knives. He wants me to stab him. Wants me to murder a child. It's not a child. How can he know that? Maybe he's wrong.
And Robert tosses the knives in frustration, saying that he cannot kill his child. It's a fair thing.
I mean, that's a fair thing because, I mean, it's one thing to be like, I want this kid to die.
Yeah. And
it's another thing to have a stranger be like, you know what you need to do is totally kill your baby. I'm not going to help. That's a you job.
You must kill your own.
Yeah.
You know?
Look, and if anyone asks, I will deny ever talking to you.
Right.
Yeah. It's just like, is he still not convinced about all this? And then just, he's in this despair. He wants Damien to die, but the to be like, hey, yeah, I'm going to stab a child. Because it's not even like drop the kid off in the woods and don't worry about it again. It is like stab a child. And that's
7 times.
That's asking a lot. And so, yeah, he's like, I don't want to do it. And he throws the knives, but David Warner goes to get them.
Yes, and as David Warner is collecting up the knives in a very Final Destination style death, a piece of giant sheet glass slides off the back of a truck and decapitates David Warner, captured by 5 different cameras in slow motion. I love when they cut back and forth between those shots.
And then when the head lands looking at itself in the mirror.
That's so good. Good. And it's barely worth mentioning because I am not making fun of it, but it's so clearly a prosthetic head.
Yes. Yeah.
But I don't care. It's so good.
Do you want to tell the story of the prosthetic head?
Yes. Evidently, David Warner kept that prosthetic head for years, and then he lost it in a divorce, which just, I mean, if I couldn't love that man anymore. Like,
the discussions. How did that?
Like, you get the big fancy coffee table in the front room. I get the head.
Yeah,
that's my head. It's not yours now. You know,
like, do you want the table or do you want the head?
Right.
The head's. We're not budging on the head.
Yeah. So,
why would you want that? Is that purely out of spite that you're like, I know he wants it, so I'm going to keep it? Is it like, no, I need this as a memory of how much you suck?
Right.
I don't know.
That is incredible. Like, has anybody asked her about that? Like,
does she still have that?
It's amazing.
Or if you're listening to this,
yes, please write in. Send me a photo, something of that head.
If you are the head and you're listening,
right. If you're David Warner and listening, please call.
Yes, please rise from the grave and call.
Robert goes home, traps the dog in the basement. Sneaks into Damien's room, closes the door to Baylock's room because they have adjoining rooms there. Mm-hmm. Starts looking through Damien's head, in his hair, clips away part of his hair, finds the 666 birthmark below his scalp. As soon as he sees this, though, Baylock attacks him. The dog is barking in the basement, so they kind of cross back and forth from that, giving it some serious, uncomfortable tension here. He manages to knock her out, finds Damien hiding behind a chair, and takes him downstairs. Baylock attacks again. And what I like about this fight is that she's just going for biting and clawing, and it's very feral. It's it is not a it's not a choreographed. It is a choreographed fight, but it is not a choreographed fight scene where they're going at each other like trained killers or something.
Yeah, it's not John Wick 3 or anything.
Right.
But I do because there have been several times before this where you have seen the two of them on screen together, and he is so much more of a physical presence over her.
Mm-hmm.
She is a petite woman
for sure,
and he's giant. Yeah, she just goes at him, and so it just makes that because Gregory Peck, so not a small man.
Yeah,
but just that she is a formidable physical.
She's
threat.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He manages to finally stab her in the neck. The dog starts howling in the basement, which is a great touch.
Yeah.
He loads Damien into the car, speeds out of his place, And for whatever reason, the police do decide to follow him. I don't know if those are just like cops that are like stationed at his place.
I think that's what I took is like they're stationed there and like, okay, the ambassador's like almost killed me and is gunning for something. What's happening? Let's go follow him.
Right.
But it does seem like less like of a, security for the ambassador is more like he's dangerous. Something's happening.
Robert takes Damien to a church, puts him on the altar, holds him down. And just as he's about to go forward with stabbing the child, police bust in and fire at Robert.
And that's brutal because as he's trying to pin Damien down, like Damien is a little kid. He's going like, no, Daddy, no, there's not that like, oh, I'm putting on an act. Like I'm evil. Right. And like we've seen in the remake of Pet Sematary and other movies. But no, he's just like, Daddy, no. But just no. Mm-hmm. And then the firing of the gun, I love that shot. It's just like this super grainy close up of the gun and just this explosion of smoke. Mm-hmm. And you don't like see it. You just see that. And then it fades to a funeral.
Yeah. So you do not see the bullet strike Gregory Peck. So it cuts right to a military style funeral. The president and first lady is there. There are two graves, and this is the president who is Robert's childhood friend. And it appears that they've adopted Damien. At least that's what it's like kind of saying to me.
This guy comes up to him and is like, oh, Mr. President, your car's ready. Yeah, thanks. Why wouldn't it be? We're at a funeral.
Yeah.
You drove me here and you parked. What do you mean it's ready?
Yeah.
But it's a little bit of a clumsy way to let the audience know that's the president.
Right.
And then they pan down and it's Damien. That, now he has real access to power.
Right.
Which, on some level, because they mentioned it earlier when they're figuring out him and David Warner. The line is pretty ridiculous.
And theologians have already interpreted the eternal sea as meaning the world of politics. The sea that constantly rages with turmoil and revolution.
Something about the sea roiling or something like that.
They just jump to, that means it's going to be politics. Like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit like now it seems a little trite to be like, oh man, the devil's going to be a politician.
Right,
oh,
sure.
He's not going to be in Congress because those are just clowns.
Yeah.
But at the time, like that was, that's not a new thing. Same thing with like the idea of a evil kid like that. Other than like, the bad seed was around, something like that. But this Village of the Damned. But I feel like so much of this is less. It's just been sort of like replicated.
Yeah.
And lifted from so much. But I still think the original one, like this, still has so much power with that. Like it's still very effective and creepy that like this kid, because when it pans down to Damien, he turns around to the camera. I don't know what exactly he's looking at, and then smiles.
Breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah. It seems like he's like, yeah, it was all me. Mm-hmm. Or was it?
Or was it? Yeah.
But it does seem like, yep, he's in on it and he's it
actually was
Satan. Things are bad. Yep. Mm-hmm. Not so good.
Like, does the movie make a decision on the final shot? Like it actually is Satan here.
Kind of feels like it, but there's not anything, definite about it.
Right.
But yeah, that's the Omen for you.
That's the Omen. So let's honor our dead. Holly, played by Holly Palance, hung herself in public. Father Brennan, played by Patrick Troughton, impaled by falling lightning rod. Catherine Thorne, played by Lee Remick, thrown to her death by Baylock. Keith Jennings, played by David Warner, decapitated by sheet glass. Mrs. Willa Baylock, played by Billy Whitelaw, stabbed in the neck with carving fork. Robert Thorne, played by Gregory Peck, shot by police officer in church. 6 dead in this film. And for the sake of getting this out of the way, before we give our final thoughts, what is your prediction for the franchise?
I don't know, because like he becomes like president. And so like he's going to have access to, is he going to cause nuclear wars? Is he going to kill thousands?
Yeah.
We wouldn't
count that, much like the station and Jason X.
Oh yeah. The Icarus station or whatever. I'm still going to say like low double digits. I'm going to go for, 22 this time.
Okay. For fun, I'll go 26.
All right.
Yeah. Because, if he's the president, is he going to be like running around slashing people in the White House? Maybe?
Like
I
how
don't
much?
know.
Yeah, it's like how much of this going forward is going to be like I've got to protect my identity.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's going to Dexter it up, is what you're saying. He's going to have a dark passenger.
I think he's going to have a dark passenger, but I think he's going to have people doing it for him, right? And they'll think they'll have it all on lock. I don't know.
Or will he get like magical Satan powers that he starts, levitating stuff around and like
starts
spearing
wishmastering people.
Right.
Yeah. Goes to a casino and makes a lady poop coins. I don't know.
Yeah. Overall, I quite like this movie.
Yeah,
the atmosphere of it is fantastic. The writing is fantastic. The score is incredible. So yeah, 2 thumbs up.
It's absolutely amazing. And I think like as for telling a sort of occult horror story, it's great. But I think, like I said, taking the focus off of him opens it up a lot more, because I think there's something to be said about, I was talking about sort of the sexual politics of this movie, and because this role was going to go to a lot of different people first. I think the initial thing was going to be the initial choice was Charlton Heston, and they couldn't do it, and then like Roy Scheider was in consideration, and a couple other people. But I think Gregory Peck is perfect for this because he has that like commanding nobility, just the voice and the posture. So having him be this patriarchal figure, like I said, all the women in this movie are either evil or useless or weak, but that's all undermined by Damien.
Yes,
by this new generation that he can't control. He's freaking out because he can't control it, and so it's like this death of the old world in that sense. So it's sort of subversively overturning the patriarchy, turning the patriarchy on its head, rather than like solidifying that in those roles of being like, this is how it should be, and they're trying to fight to keep it. Certainly that's what Gregory Peck is trying to do, and not saying that Satan is the way to undo it, but that in the face of all this, it's powerless, it's useless.
Right.
And I thought that's very interesting. Like to focus it on a family dynamic, on an individual dynamic, than just sort of the high concept, what if your kid was the devil?
Sure.
I think opens this up for a lot more interpretations, and is just a lot more mysterious and interesting, I think.
Yeah, and just it feels more just, classy and interesting. Like there's more to like kind of digest than, just like killer kid running around causing deaths.
Because it was also very reflective of the times, because you're not too far removed from the Vietnam War and just all the tumultuous changes in America. Like I said, second wave feminism was happening at the time, which is a lot more of the we can be more than just housewives and that kind of thing. And so you have this bubbling pot going on that I think that informs a lot of this movie. I
wonder if the remake will hold on to that.
I'm sure.
Or if they will make take another approach.
And I think and that's absolutely what I'm worried of going forward. And pretty positive is what's going to happen is it's going to be focused more on the high concept element of it. Yeah. Which obviously, that is the through line. You absolutely have to have that.
Sure.
Whether it will be done with the same kind of touch, we'll see. I don't have my hopes high for that one. But if they're fun, it'll be fun.
Yeah, totally. So I think there are 5, I believe. So there's kind of like being held as a trilogy up through part 3, obviously. And then part 4, I believe, was like a straight to cable, which does not bode well.
Yes.
Again, more for just being boring than low budget, and then, the remake that came out in 2006. And I believe there's a TV show.
There were 2. There was just a pilot that aired in 1995. They tried to make it a TV series, and Donna was attached as executive producer, but nothing ever happened with it. And then, in 2016, there was a series called Damien that was on A&E.
Right. I looked up an image of that, and it just looks so glossy and just everything that I dislike in horror a lot of the times.
Remember when A&E stood for Arts and Entertainment? It was like a fancy channel.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
It's like Bravo. Like Bravo still blows my mind, because Bravo used to be like, oh, here's like, I'm going to turn to it, it's going to be a ballet or a play. And now it's just like Real Housewives of whatever.
For sure. Yeah.
It's very funny.
But that's about going to wrap it up for this week. Keep watching along. I saw online a few of you are watching along with us. I always love when that happens. But I haven't seen any more of the movies in this series. So I'm very excited to check all these off my list. Most excited for part 3. I know I'm just setting myself up for disappointment, but I want to see Sam Neill as the president.
Like I'm just excited to see Sam Neill, because I recently, or not too long ago, rewatched Event Horizon, which I liked a bit less this time around. I still like it, but it didn't like. But I love watching Sam Neill in that movie.
Yeah.
So But yeah,
he's unsung horror hero, between Event Horizon and Mouth of Madness too.
Yeah, and the possession, or just possession.
Right.
Yeah, he's so good in that. That's a rough watch, but I love that one. But yeah, this is I can't recommend this movie enough. It's great. I think it's a lot more honestly like more reserved than say your Exorcist or even Rosemary's Baby. Yeah, even though it's been a while since I've seen that, admittedly. But I like that. I like that it is more of like a mystery drama thing rather than just full on horror. Like it's not as scary as I thought it'd be. But so maybe as a horror movie, it might not be what you want. But I think as a movie, it's great.
It's got a palpable sense of dread,
absolutely,
through the entire thing, though. That I think is worth checking out.
And like you said, that score is. That score helps a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go make soup and listen to that score after we're done.
What kind of soup are you making?
Hot and sour. It's gonna be dramatic.
It's gonna be devilishly delicious.
Right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this week. If you got a moment, go give us a 5-star review. So help out with the algorithm over there. And if you'd like to follow us on Instagram, we're This May Hurt a Bit Pod, and we are Hurt a Bit Pod on YouTube. And you can email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. So
drop us a line.
Strap in your Blu-ray players or fire up Hulu and watch Damien Omen 2 and come back around in a couple of weeks. We'll talk to you then. Good night.
Good night.
This has been a Caretaker Press production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at thismayhurtabitpod and email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. Give us a 5-star review over on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.